Welcome back. My name is Kit.
And I'm Steve.
And this is Streaming Things, streaming 1984's Amadeus.
Amadeus, Amadeus. Amadeus, Amadeus, Amadeus.
No, I'm Amadeus.
Oh, Amadeus.
It might seem random that we're talking about this movie from 1984, but it's not random. It was chosen by one of our beloved patrons. That was a tier of our Patreon. We're updating the Patreon reward system very soon, finishing the last of the Patreon demanded films. This is the fourth to last of our Patreon demanded films. On Friday, you'll hear Hidalgo from 2004. Next week, we're going to be talking about When Harry Met Sally. And finally, the last film of our Patreon demanded series will be Attack the Block. So look forward to that on the main feeds. We're still going to be doing Patreon chosen films, but they're going to be Patreon only.
Yeah.
So we're not going to be, not clogging, but we're not going to be putting these on the main feed soon. We're going to dedicate those to our, hot ticket properties that are, relevant to the times from now on. And
our choosing method will be slightly different. So it'll be like one a month as opposed to 2 or 3 a week. So
yeah, well, the reason we did this so voraciously is to plow through them, knowing that we were going to change the Patreon reward system. So next month, we're going to be doing House of the Dragon season 2 and ancillary content, and The Boys season 4 and ancillary content only on the main feeds with a couple extra hot surprises coming at the end of this month.
Ooh, a hot surprise.
Hot surprise.
What is hot might never die.
There's a couple clues as to what's coming. But yeah, Amadeus, baby. Thank you to our patrons. Steve, do you have any reasoning behind choosing Amadeus ready for us?
Oh, yes. So this movie was chosen by Ashley Hazen, one of our beloved patrons. Ashley did respond and let me know why they did, in fact, choose this movie. They write, I chose Amadeus as my film because it was my high school theater teacher's favorite movie, and he would show it to our class yearly and always gush about how underrated of a film it was. It's become one of my favorites over time, but when I originally went up to a tier in Patreon and requested this film, I had just gotten the news that my teacher had passed away. Oh, that's terrible. So I'm dedicating this to him to try and share this movie he loves so much with more people who also love films. His name was Mr. Papa George. I hope I'm pronouncing that. Mr. Papa George, and he would have loved your show. Sorry if that's too much info. It's just the truth. Feel free to share any part of that or none at all. Well, I shared all of it. And thank you all so much. Love you guys. Oh, I think that's the first time anyone's ever chosen a film as a loving tribute to someone. That's really sweet.
Yeah. And we apologize if that's not the first time and we just shat all over your tribute. By we, I mean Steve.
Yeah. And also I apologize if you do not pronounce Mr. Papa George's name that way. This one goes out to you, Mr. Papa George. What?
I'm about to Papa George. Well,
that does make sense that a theater teacher would be showing this, because I think when I first saw this movie, it was from a music teacher as well. So that makes sense.
Interesting. I don't know if I saw this in school. I really feel like I did not, but I might have.
I definitely saw this in high school. That's the first time I saw this.
What do you think they did during the bubes?
But just look at them bubes.
Aren't you the one that told me that story of watching Romeo and Juliet?
Yeah, the old 1960s version of Romeo and Juliet. My English teacher, she brought the TV on the cart. Yeah. And then she just at one point stood up and walked over and stood in front of the TV for like 10 minutes. And then when the boobs happened, she just went, there's the nudity. And then like sat down because she had warned us ahead of time that there was nudity. And almost as if she could not trust us and our lying eyes to see to know what we were seeing. She didn't try to hide it.
She made it so worse.
She didn't try to hide it or anything. She just went, and there they are. And then and sat down.
Told you.
You thought I was lying? Nah.
Bubes.
Bubes.
Yeah. So that's what happened.
It sure is.
Yeah. School, I don't know if that's where I saw this, but I think I've only seen Amadeus one time. And the thing about Amadeus is there's a director's cut now that is pretty much the only version you can find. And unlike many director's cuts, it's pretty much universally agreed that the director's cut of Amadeus is a worse version.
So you told me that last week when we were trying to figure out what version of this movie we were watching. So I did some
digging.
Not like very surface level digging. I did not strike oil.
The kind of research I do for the pod.
Well, it was more the type of research where it was like, can I find the short version? What is the difference between the two versions? Just so I know. And I saw a lot of people saying like they prefer this one because it fleshes out the relationship between Salieri and Mozart more.
Yeah, I don't know which scenes were missing.
I don't know either.
Honestly, it's not like a universally regarded thing. I've seen a couple of comments about it, and it was one teat. One teat.
One teat. It's the third episode of a long day that we're recording today.
There was one tweet specifically. I don't even remember from who, but it was a director that I admire. And it was like, hey, if you want to watch a movie to teach you about how important editing is, watch the director's cut of Amadeus, which is a million times more of a slog with only 20 extra minutes of a movie that was a masterpiece, right? So that just stuck with me. Like it was somebody I respect. It was like Ryan Johnson or somebody that I respect a lot. That's all. So when I knew it was coming up on the pod and I just happened to have seen that tweet and was like, hey, we need to find the theatrical version. Also, selfishly, it's just 20 minutes shorter. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
But
this is a long one.
I couldn't find it. The one on Netflix is the one I watched, which is indeed the 3-hour version. And it just seemed like the only one I could find to rent or buy anywhere. But directed by Milos Forman and written by Peter Schaefer and Zdeněk Mahler. There we go. I just gave it my best try.
Hey, that's all you can do.
And I do want to point out as well, not a very historically accurate movie.
No.
To their knowledge, there was no major enmity between Salieri, who was a very successful composer in his own right, and Mozart. In fact, Mozart's name being Amadeus is only mostly true. You know his actual name?
Wolfgang.
Johannes Chrysostomus Wolfgangus Theophilus Mozart.
I love how you were so paranoid about how you mispronounced that last person's name that you're like, let me try an even harder one.
I'm pretty good at what they call extemporaneous prose. It's just every now and then, you know, as an ignorant American who's never traveled.
Yeah.
Pretty tough on the inflections and stuff. But as far as the obnoxious laugh that Mozart does, he was known to have a juvenile sense of humor as far as we know or what we can tell. He actually wrote a letter to his father, sister, and cousin, and he would say things, or he wrote many letters that we still have to this day, and they would say things like "lek mich im Arsch," which is like "lick my ass." You know, I don't know why he said that to his sister, but that's what he would say.
I say it to my sister all the time.
That's where they would pull
Monica, lick my ass.
That's where they would pull that stuff from. And then the whole thing about the Italian composers in Vienna's court trying to thwart his career, mostly false. Opera in the 18th century was dominated by Italian composers, many like Salieri, who made their careers in Vienna, but Mozart was suspicious of plots against him. So maybe it plays on like his actual paranoia or something more than anything that actually happened.
Yeah.
By the way, it says here that Mozart did not write Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, which is often attributed to him. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
And the whole ending to this movie about a stranger commissioning Mozart's Requiem is actually true. You know, the whole masked stranger thing apparently did happen, except it was commissioned anonymously, right? But we now know that the commissioner was the Count Franz von Wolfsegg, an amateur musician who wanted to pass the piece off as his own composition. So it was not Salieri. And Mozart died before completing the piece, which was finished by his student, Franz Xavier Süssmayr. So Salieri was not involved in composing Requiem as he does in the movie.
I wonder why the screenwriters and the filmmakers decided, let's do this character assassination
on Salieri.
On poor Salieri, a fairly obscure composer, at least in the modern day sense.
Yeah. I think, well, I'll give my thoughts on that in a second.
Full disclosure, this style of history of Mozart and Salieri and all that whole thing, I have no knowledge historically about any of this. So you just telling me all this right now, I'm like, oh, wow, that's great knowledge. Yeah. Didn't know any of it.
Mozart really was broke when he died.
That makes sense.
But it was not the same, did not happen the same way it was in the movie. He was in debt when he died in 1791. And his wife Costanza had to request a pension from the emperor to provide for herself. But the situation was not because Mozart had been unsuccessful or unappreciated. He was simply bad with his own finances.
Yeah.
He amassed a fortune and just squandered it. He also did have a simple funeral, but this was in keeping with the Viennese custom and wasn't because of his debts or lack of recognition. In the movie, he's dumped in an unmarked mass grave.
Yeah.
However, this is from the Handel-Hayden Society, by the way, what I'm pulling this information from. I did find other sources that say he was buried in an unmarked poor people's grave.
Pauper's grave. That
was later found and marked as Mozart's probable resting place.
And also these 15 other people.
But yeah, did Salieri poison Mozart? Probably false. Mozart seems to have thought he was poisoned. As his wife recalled, he said, "I'm sure I've been poisoned." That's sorry. That was really I cannot rid myself of this idea. The rumor that Salieri poisoned Mozart was popularized. So this is why they wrote the movie this way, probably. By 1830 in a play by Alexander Pushkin, later turned into an opera by Rimsky-Korsakov. The idea was revived in 1979 play Amadeus by Peter Shaffer and the 1984 movie about which we are speaking now. Modern scholars question the poisoning hypothesis. The exact cause of Mozart's death at 35 years old remains unknown, but rheumatic fever, streptococcal infection, kidney disease, syphilis, and trichinosis are some of the hypotheses. So he was very ill from living poorly and thought he was poisoned, but probably was just
sick from
partying too hard.
Yeah.
And then the last one cracks me up. Will Mozart make your child smarter? False.
It'll make them dumber.
I just thought it was interesting because you made the point that all of this enmity between Salieri and Mozart was, first off, it became the narrative because of his paranoia, rumors afterward in the 19th century, blah, 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 that Salieri had something to do with this. And for all we know, he did. We weren't there. Right. And we know very little about what transpired. However, I think it's fascinating from a writing perspective because it's basically like Good Will Hunting, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In the sense that like there's that whole scene between the mathematics professor and Matt Damon where he's like angry at him, you know, like only 5 people in the world are even good enough at what they do to understand what you do. But to those people, you're a god, and it's so disheartening. Like I have to work so hard to do what you do effortlessly, right? And it's just like shatters his world that Matt Damon exists.
Yeah.
And that's how I viewed Salieri, because most people look at what Mozart's doing and they're like, ha ha ha, neat. And they go home and jerk off or whatever, right?
Right.
But to Salieri, he's like, holy shit. What do you mean you memorized my whole composition just by looking at it once?
Right.
I worked for weeks on that, you know? Or what do you mean this is your first draft of this symphony? There's no corrections on it, you know?
He just knows it's in his head and he puts it down on the paper. There's no like corrections, like you said. It's insane. Yeah.
Yeah. And so to me, I think that that's narratively really interesting to juxtapose those two, but also it's a Shakespearean level tragedy. I love this movie. I'm spoiling that, by the way. Sorry if you can't tell. But it's a Shakespearean level tragedy because these people should be the best of friends. Nobody can understand Mozart as well as Salieri and vice versa, but they've created this enmity because like when I watched this as a kid, probably in school, I remember thinking that Salieri was such a whiny dick, which he is. But also on the second watch, I see so much more of Mozart's petulance, you know, his stunted emotional growth, his arrogance. So they should have been the best of friends. If it wasn't for Salieri's envy and Mozart's arrogance, they would have been. That scene, I'm going to cry. That scene where they're composing Requiem together is one of the best things I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, because you see how well they work together, and it's like, and you can see just how well Salieri is just in the moment. He's like, because in the beginning of the movie, he's talking about Mozart was amazing. I really wanted to meet him. He's like, his music has such a profound impact on me. And then they finally meet and he sees, you know, his personality and he's just like, oh, this creature, his sort of faith and envy get in the way of it. But in that last scene, like you're saying, it really shows like this is the one person who can truly appreciate this character, and just him being able to be in the room as he's creating is probably the best thing that's ever happened to Salieri, which is kind of fucking messed up that it's killing Mozart. It really is a tragedy. And this movie is really, really amazing. Like I also love this movie. It was nominated for how many Academy Awards? It won Best Picture, Best Actor, sound mixing, makeup, production design, director, adaptive screenplay, costume design. It won all these things, and it's all well deserved. Especially, I love F. Murray Abraham, just in general.
11 Academy Awards.
I think he's a real gem. And
F. Murray Abraham is amazing.
Yeah, and this is just it's just like if you wanted to roll out a red carpet, like we want to show the world just how incredible F. Murray Abraham can be, and they just made this movie. Like they're like, we need a F. Murray Abraham vehicle. Let's create a movie centered around him and his performance. It's so good. It's
interesting to me that Tom Hulce didn't have a more illustrious career after this.
Yeah, because he's great in this movie as well.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's an incredible role, and really nobody.
A really hard one to do, like to be this petulant character that could come across as like really annoying. Like I could understand the audience kind of like, oh, I also hate that dude.
Yeah, for sure.
I did see that Tom Hulce said he based that laugh off of a famous director that he's worked with, but he to this day has not said which director it was. So
interesting.
Just got to look at his IMDb.
I feel like that's Tim Burton. You know what I mean? Yeah, for sure.
I could see that.
That maybe just Jeffrey Jones made me think of Tim Burton, but
oh yeah, because Jeffrey Jones is in
Beetlejuice.
Beetlejuice, that's right. Yeah,
yeah. But F. Murray Abraham, amazing. I think about him in White Lotus and Mythic Quest a lot, which are very recent roles. But he's so good at like being this drunken buffoon older man, but like that's highly educated. He just does that part so well. But yeah, brilliant movie. I'm glad you like it as much as I do. But you know, that scene of them composing Requiem is just this. It's cool for their characters, but just in the abstract, it's such a wonderful window into what it's like to create, and that when the muse strikes, especially when you're collaborating with somebody and you're both on the same wavelength, you so rarely achieve that, but you can just, he's on his deathbed and his life's in the shitter, and Salieri hates himself, but none of that matters in this moment. It's just like the next
art
note. It's almost like you have nothing to do with it. And it's so rarely in life has that happened to me, where it feels like I'm hearing the song that I'm writing for the first time rather than creating it, or writing the thing that, you know, I'm just reading the story that I'm writing rather than writing it. That's the goal of every artist, is to achieve that synchronicity or whatever. I know I'm talking at my ass here, but I just understood what the director was trying to convey in that moment. And it was awesome.
Yeah.
And it's
very well done.
Mozart, interesting guy, as you guys all know, but crazy prodigy. I mean, he was playing by 4 years old, composing his first symphony at 7, I think. That's
insane.
His first opera at 12.
I was actually a pretty good piano player when I was a child.
Really?
I quit very early because I don't have any self-discipline, but I was playing like Beethoven at the age of 6 on the piano.
Really?
But like by 7, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Piano sucks. So like, I can't do it now. But when I was a little kid,
what a douche move.
It was quite a douche move. My 6-year-old me was a dick.
Yeah. I've always wanted to play piano.
Now I'm sure it was like the 6-year-old version of Beethoven, but still like, I kind of wish I didn't give it up because then I could play the piano.
Yeah, I got a keyboard in high school, and I was trying to teach myself, but I didn't know music theory, so I was trying to learn that. I was taking night classes for that as well, and didn't work out. So that's just I guess my brain doesn't work. I played guitar. It's the one instrument where you don't have to know music theory. You can do. It's a long story why, but I really wanted to play piano because I have these like long useless fingers, you know, piano fingers they're called. Ding, ding, ding,
tickle them ivories.
Yeah. But I played keyboard. I learned how to play some chords and stuff.
Nice.
But yeah, I'm really jealous of people that play piano. That's a super cool thing, man.
Especially when you see people who just like, oh, please, I'm not prepared. And they just like go off. It's incredibly
it's a sexy thing. I just want to be Ryan Gosling from La La Land so badly.
City of Stars.
Stop. I can't handle it right now. But yeah, we both, this is a masterpiece. This is a 5-star movie to me. I think it's a wonderful work that is not talked about enough, even though it won all those awards, you know. Are the kids watching Amadeus? I don't know, but they should be.
I don't know.
Hopefully they're still showing it in school. That's all I know.
I hope so.
This episode of Streaming Things is sponsored by BetterHelp.
BetterHelp.
You know, Steve, there's something I need to get off my chest.
What's that, fella?
It's been weighing on me. You know that I resigned at the day job recently, right? And I've been a little scared. There's a family to worry about. There's health insurance. There's capitalism.
Sounds like a stressful time.
But we all carry around different stressors, big and small. And it feels better when you bring something to the light and keep them bottled up. It can start to affect us negatively. And therapy is a safe space to get things off your chest and to figure out how to work through whatever's weighing you down. In my case, it's all of the stress, the misery, the fear. But I had to come over here and share that with you, and I felt better. You know, that's a real thing that happened.
Yeah.
Unloading all that on you and Erica and feeling better myself.
That sounds like my Friday night.
Sometimes you just need somebody to listen. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. If you're not vibing, that's completely fine. So get it off your chest with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/streamingthings to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/streamingthings.
April is here, the tomb is empty, and it's time to give a special thanks to all of our patrons who keep the lights on at Streaming Things. And I want to give a special shout out to our super patrons for the month of April. Thank you so much to Stanton Valentino, Maddlestat, Bryce Coppin, Susie Callahan, Anthony Corona, Sunshine, Huckleberry Cauliflower, Ashley Hazen, Mike from New Hampshire, Brett X, Emily Scarano, Lil Tickler, Svento7, Jay Scramo, Bluff Pum, A.K. Ashley Ray, Adam Busby, Wendy O'Laughlin, Jason Hawkins, Conrad, Kaylee Sampson, Rabbit Dog in a Barbie Car, Charlie Friday, Alexis Adler, Peaches, Emmy, Haley B, Joe Velez, John Collins, Amanda King, Trisha Bueller, Sun Loving, Mortal, Suzanne Rode, Jen Robinson, Kalisha Reeves, Aaron Armstrong, Kevin Strother, Ashley Powers, Stephen the Fifth, Casey McCain, and Enza. Thank you all so much from the bottom of our hearts. And with that, let's get back to the episode.
IMDb describes the plot thusly: the life, success, and troubles of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart as told by Antonio Salieri, the contemporaneous composer who was deeply jealous of Mozart's talent and claimed to have murdered him. Yeah. And I don't know the royal politics as far as what the empires were like by now. I meant to do some more research on that. Did not. The Austrian Empire, things like that. That had a lot to do with this movie as well. And it starts out with Salieri weeping in his room. I killed you, Mozart.
Forgive your assassin, Mozart. Mea culpa.
Mea culpa. They're eating his snacks outside his door.
Two of his little henchmen are like,
yeah.
Oh, Salieri, we're going to eat all your snacks. If you don't like the scene, Salieri.
And they finally bust down the door. He has cut his own throat. And so they take him to a hospital, which is kind of a big reveal at the end of the movie that he's actually in essentially an asylum at the end. At least it was revealed to me.
I thought that was obvious when...
Don't call me stupid.
Because when they let the priest in for the first time, he walks through the...
I zoned out, I guess.
Oh, okay.
Because when he's walking out and you see all the crazies, it's
there's
like...
a guy like chained up by his neck like a dog just standing there naked, like bouncing around.
That's usually an indicator.
Typically.
That we're not in Kansas.
That you're in the waiting room for the ER.
Here's what might have happened. The movie's so long by the end, I was like, it was a reveal again. Yeah. It took me on such a journey.
Oh, wait, he's old now.
Whoa. The priest is there to see Herr Salieri and offers him forgiveness. And
yeah. Oh, yeah. Because I wrote a note because there's a naked guy in there. And of course, you don't see the dick. Let me see that dick. And I have, let me see that dick. Why won't you let me do it?
Well, in that instance, it would not be consensual, Steve. So
I want to see it. I want to see it. I love how Salieri hits the priest with the old, don't you know who I am? I'm Salieri.
He's showing him some jams. That's what it is.
It was a very popular tune in its day.
Playing some play. That would be so funny to redo this movie, but it's just like some DJ Khaled or something. What about this one? Another one, and then begins to play, and they're like, "No, I never heard it." He's really.
What would be the contemporary version of like an older musician who's?
It's probably like the Drake and Kendrick beef. you know?
It's like a really old Drake in the hospital.
Yeah.
Like, forgive me a culpa.
Me a culpa, Kenny. K dot. Yeah, he's just like, from the windows to the walls. Have you heard this one?
To the walls.
No? That's crazy.
This is a popular tune in its day.
The cut to the past, by the way, is incredible in this scene. The way that they do that, the editing, and I'm not surprised it won so many Oscars for each of the technical achievements as well. But the priest does not know the jams, but he does know Mozart. I love that. Da-da-da-da. Oh shit. That's a banger. You wrote that?
He was my idol.
No, I didn't write that. Yeah, but the Mozart played for the Pope as a kid, and Salieri was jealous of his, having Mozart having the father that he had, because his father was like, "Don't play music like a little bitch. You got a farm."
Yeah, there's this one little bit where he's like, he's jealous of his dad, and then he's like, and then one day, the greatest thing that ever happened to me happened.
He said he prayed and prayed, and then a miracle happened.
It's his father died.
Yeah, my father died. So he believes that's in the sense that he killed Amadeus. Is that, he thinks and I like that aspect of Salieri's character too. He's like kind of a narcissist, but it's so fascinating that he thinks that by yearning for these things, that he's responsible. Like he's just a lot of Catholic guilt involved in this man in general,
This man is wrapped up in that guilt. Yeah. Because he's saying, like, I guess music also is how he believes that God is communicating to him and through him. And that's why he just loves it so much. And even says, like, I will give you my chastity, my humility, my industry, as long as you allow me to be a great composer, God. And it's like, that's not how the relationship typically is supposed to work. But he overlooks that. But
also it's like, he views it as a curse that God is mean to him.
Yeah, he's
like, why would you spitefully give me such a strong yearning for this gift and then not give it to me?
Yeah.
If you're not going to give me the gift, why wouldn't you just make me not want it? This is how the life works, buddy. But Emperor Joseph is known as the musical king, right? And he's like, it was great at first. Everybody liked me. I liked myself. And I think that that's such a crucial line. So few of us have that, right? And that's what he loses. That's so detrimental to him. But until Mozart arrived, I liked myself, right? It's a good lesson, this movie, for not comparing yourself to other people.
Yeah.
Which is something I'm very bad at.
I mean, if you look at your friends' Instagram pages, don't compare yourself to them. They're just putting the good times, not the bad times on Instagram.
Somebody better there's always a bigger podcast.
There's always a bigger fish.
As Qui-Gon Jinn once said.
Big goober fish.
There's always a bigger podcast.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
Joe Rogan.
That's what they learned at the temple.
It's always going to be there.
Yeah, that's right. But he meets Mozart for the first time. And there's this fascinating set piece where he's just looking around I played a game with myself. Could I tell which one was him?
Who was the face behind the greatest musical mind of all time?
And he ends up, basically it's this lascivious little man who's playing tickle fights with a young woman, like, give me them boobies.
It's backwards day. People fart backwards. Eat my shit.
But he is like, I like the setup that he's using his genius mind in such a vulgar way, because the ability to reverse the words like that is impressive.
It's pretty good. Yeah.
But also that's what he's using it for. Eat my ass. Oh, you dirty devil. Oh.
And he's supposed to be playing for is it the Pope in this scene?
Yeah, I think so.
There's like a private concert for the Emperor and the Pope, and he's not even there, and they start playing the music without him because he's late, and he's like, oh shit, that's my music. I gotta go. And then the moment when he says that's my music in Salieri, you just see him like in the corner like, no, what? That little, and then he keeps calling him the creature from this point on. And I do like that. Like,
well, because Salieri was in that room just to raid the snacks.
Because he's got a sweet tooth.
I could relate to that.
I love that little bit of character where he's always munching on sweets.
Yeah. That's why we were going to bring him those cream.
Salieri, we got the cream ball for you. Open the door, Salieri.
Also, I noticed Salieri in this scene is the only one that's not wearing a wig, which I assume is a measure of status to wear one of those ridiculous powdered wigs. But if you go back to that scene, even the women, he's the only one that it's his actual hair. Something that I just know. I don't know if it means anything, but it's what I noticed. But he's a giggling, dirty-minded creature. But Mozart wants his grace to dismiss him. He doesn't want to be in service to this pig fart anymore, but he won't. Instead, I'm going to send you back to Salzburg or whatever.
I love his little mark of defiance where he
makes him watch the applause.
Well, not only is he making him watch the applause, but he bows to them, and in doing so, just moons him.
Yeah,
it's just like, oh, it's just a nice little fuck you.
Yeah, he's an arrogant little prick for sure. And Salieri is marveling over the symphony that he had just heard, and he talks about how Mozart speaks with the voice of God. Right, there's such longing in the talent that Mozart has. But Emperor,
I could watch Salieri just describe music all day. Just the way he's just sitting there like, oh, this happened.
And F. Murray's the perfect person to do that.
Yeah.
But Emperor Joseph is wanting a German opera from Mozart, right? Like that's the whole bit on the next, and that's an obscene thing. Operas are always done in Italian.
All intelligent people agree on that.
We all know. Well, it is a prettier sounding language than German, or definitely even English, right?
German is a kind of a harsh language.
Yeah, ich spreche ein bisschen Deutsch. Ich habe keine Unterhosen.
Ich habe keine Zeit.
Mozart is trying on wigs. Different ones. Salieri wrote a little ditty to welcome Mozart to their court in Vienna. And the emperor was like, can I play it? And he's terrible, right? And Salieri's pain is such.
It's palpable.
We've all been in some situation like that. Right? Where some asshat's like, can I just do it? And you're like,
I guess. And then as they're doing it, you're like, no, like that, like just the way he's trying to politely correct the king.
Yeah.
He's the emperor. He's the emperor. You can't really say you're going to get your head cut off if you make him feel bad. So it's like, very, very good. Just a little quicker on the notes. Very good, Your Majesty.
It's like so fucking painful to him because he wants to impress Mozart, which we find out wasn't going to happen anyway.
No.
But he wanted that opportunity. So they're stalling Mozart so he can practice, and which is a funny little scene where he's like trying to get around him. Like, what's going on right now? But he enters. The laugh immediately freaks all of them out, and they find out that Salieri wrote that. And he's like, "Oh, a funny little tune, but it yielded some good things." And that's already Salieri's like, "What do you mean by that?
What the fuck?
I worked all night on that. Like, it's not a funny little tune. It's a fucking banger, certified." And then he's coming up with what he's doing to it on the spot.
He's like, ooh, this is much better right here. Yeah.
And it is much better, right? But he wants to set his new opera in a Turkish harem. And they're aghast at that idea.
Is that subject appropriate for the National Theater?
Oh, don't worry. It's not going to be vulgar at all.
Name us a German virtue. Love.
That's what he says all the time. But yeah, he memorized his whole funny little ditty in one sitting just from hearing it once, and then makes it better. Shits all over Salieri. So that's the beginning of the film's enmity.
Salieri is now mad at God.
He gave me that longing and then made me mute. Why? So good. He should have been a poet. Should have been a poet. We cut to Cavalleri's lesson, I believe she's called. She meets Mozart. 10 minutes of ghastly scales.
Well, isn't she asking Salieri about him, and he's just kind of like, you don't want to work with him. He's never meet your heroes type thing. But she went behind his back to get into Mozart's opera,
and then he sleeps with her.
Yeah, and he also hates it because it's clear, even though Salieri has this chaste life, right? He's devoted his chastity to God. He still like loves this woman.
Yeah,
and probably.
I knew in that moment he'd had her.
He'd had her, and thus I can't have it.
And he does despicable things. He probably eats ass.
I wouldn't.
No,
I would never.
Never. I told God I wouldn't if he'd make me talented.
That's an exit hole only.
It's true.
The way God intended.
Yes. But she's upset when she finds out that he's engaged. So that's how he knows. Salieri knows that they've slept together. For the first time in my life, I began to know really violent thoughts. I love how it cuts periodically to the priest who feels like a little bit out of his depth in this confession.
He's like, I was only supposed to be here for like 5 minutes.
And we've all been there too.
This is going to be a whole day. Okay, and then what? Oh, when he made a song. Oh.
When the olds start rambling about their, okay. This was a banger. I'm sure it was. It
was very popular in its day.
But yeah, he prayed to have Mozart sent away, but the other emperor won't have him back, right? So he's kind of stuck there in Vienna. And Mozart's father bids that he not marry and wait his coming. So Mozart marries immediately. We cut to their little wedding.
Cut to Constance, the woman that he was kind of playing around with and talking backwards earlier in the movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, that's his fiance.
And his fiance's mother is also his landlady. A great little tidbit there.
And the emperor's niece wants Mozart to instruct her, and the emperor wants that as well. And this is where Salieri starts to try to undercut him, because he's no Mozart, but he has a lot of influence in the Viennese court, especially when it comes to music. And Mozart's angry that he must submit his work to, quote unquote, the Italians. You know, he's like, this is bullshit. I'm awesome.
Musical idiots.
And the wife's angry. She's worried about being poor. So Frau Mozart brings his work to Salieri. And she brought him the originals, and there were no corrections, right? The music was already finished in his head, and he just writes it down. That's insane to him. And he says that he will help her, but he gives her the price. Basically, a piece of ass.
Yeah. Yeah. You can enjoy these nipples of Venus, but I want to also enjoy these nipples.
Wait, where does that come from?
That's the candy that he gives her.
Oh, really? His nipples of Venus?
He calls them nipples of Venus. Yeah.
I didn't catch that. Those sound delicious.
He said nipples. I'm like, huh?
Huh? Yeah, you parked right up.
What?
Yep. So that's the price as he tries to extort her.
Yeah, it's really gross.
It is.
It's very gross.
He doesn't do anything to Mozart by doing this. It's just like a petty move. Because I thought it was going to be a big plot point where he blackmails him later or does something. It never comes up again.
No.
It's just, I saw your wife's boobs and haha.
Yeah, he just embarrasses this poor woman who just wants to support her husband, and
she's desperate because he's so arrogant that he won't like take a normal job.
Right.
And again, in the
she's just caught in the middle.
Movie's not accurate in that regard completely. Like he was quite wealthy for much of his young life. It's just he squanders it for whatever reason. But yeah, he's praying to God to give him music. Mozart's wife returns, and as soon as she starts to get naked, he rings the bell for the servants to catch her and tells her to leave. And she ends up weeping to Mozart. He doesn't know why she's so upset, and I don't think it ever comes back up again.
And now we are enemies, you and I.
But he's talking to God. It's such a good transition.
Yeah, he really only sees Mozart almost as this proxy to God, and he's having this like little war with his deity, and poor Mozart is just the mascot for that hatred. And yeah, he's catching strays on behalf of God.
Indeed, yes. But he tells the emperor that Mozart is unable to be trusted alone with young ladies. So Mozart visits Salieri. And he's like, hey, please help me, hook me up with some work, or somebody, can you help me out here? So he tells him about Herr Sommer.
Yeah, he needs like at least 6 to 8 months of work.
Yeah, he asks for a loan initially for a loan, because he's working on this opera.
Yeah.
He's working on something big. I can't tell you what yet, right? So he said, I can't loan you any money, but I'll recommend a gentleman instead. And it's this guy we all know the type. Steve might be one of these guys, but just obsessed with dogs. He's a little uncouth. He's just concerned with nothing but his goodest boys.
All the dogs are barking, quiet down. Keep playing.
And Mozart is so disgusted by this. He ends up storming out and taking the bottle of champagne with him.
He's supposed to teach their daughter how to play the piano.
But essentially he's teaching his dogs to
not bark during performances.
Tell me, get somebody else if you want to instruct the dog, right? So Mozart's father comes to visit, and he's been living like a frat boy the whole time. They can't afford a cleaning lady.
Papa?
And Stanzi's in the bed late in the day, I assume, and tells his dad not to look at his secret composition.
But he says like, hey, Dad, I know you're judging what's going on right now.
Yeah.
My place is a mess. We don't have a cleaning lady.
By the way, she's pregnant.
Stanzi's pregnant. You want to go to a really raunchy party?
Want to go clubbing?
You want to go to this era version of clubbing?
And he's like, I know you love it, Daddy.
Daddy, let's go get masks, Daddy.
And they're playing some goofy ass game where he gets a penalty. Tell me my penalty, Daddy. Tell me. And he does the whole thing where he plays Bach, lifted upside down and then backwards. It's really impressive. And then
so impressive.
Plays Salieri, and Salieri's there. So it's very offensive when he's like, no, I'm a big, stupid needle dick bitch. Salieri's
Salieri's the one that suggests it.
Yeah.
Because he's in the mask, so he's anonymous. But yeah, he's sort of mocking him, and that was God laughing at me. Before I leave this earth, I will laugh at you, God.
That hurt. He did that to himself. And then there's a young woman coming to speak to Mozart. It's Laurel, the maid. And we find out an anonymous admirer hired her, but it's Salieri to have her spy on him.
And Mozart's dad immediately is like, "Nah, turn her away. This is a bad idea." But you know, they're desperate. They want the help.
And his sassy wife is like, "It's none of your fucking business, Dad. I don't know why you're here.
If that's even your real name."
All you do is lay around all day.
He's like, "I got the pox. I can't help it." No.
Yeah. She's like, "I've been drinking green tea all goddamn day." She's like, she's really hostile, you know? But Salieri hired the maid to spy on them and asked her to let him know when they're out of the house. And she finds out, hey, he's been selling his items in order to survive and look like he's wealthy still. That's what's going on. He's writing an Italian opera, they find out when he goes in to look at his stuff while he's gone, about Figaro.
The Marriage of Figaro.
It's a French play that's been banned by the emperor.
The emperor's cousin is Marie Antoinette,
I believe.
And this play apparently just really strums up class warfare. And that's why the emperor's like, my cousin Maria, she's saying the people are about to hang her.
Look, she just likes to eat her cake. She asked if she could share it with some other people. I don't think it's going well.
It's not going well at all.
She hasn't responded to me in weeks.
And it's because of this play.
So he's confronted by His Majesty. It's 20 minutes. No recitatives. I don't know what that means. But
20 people talking, and it's in perfect harmony.
Yeah. And there's this whole bit where he does convince him to let him put on the Figaro opera. But then there's some more flack from the other Italian composers in the court.
Yeah, because they want to do more the classics, that type of thing. And Mozart's saying, like, people would rather listen to their hairdresser than these figures that are so marvelous. It's like they shit marble.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm a vulgar man, but my music is not.
And he does convince His Majesty with that. So Salieri plots with the Italian turds over the ballet portion of it. And then he ends up in turn coming to Salieri in despair to talk to His Majesty for him about the ballet stuff. So it's like, you know, it's working a little too well. He's like, I of course didn't say a word to the emperor.
But it kind of looks like he did, because then the emperor shows up.
Mozart thinks it's his friend.
Yeah, from Mozart's point of view, he's like, dude, Salieri's got my back. And Salieri's like, shit.
Thanks, bro. Yeah. So he comes to the rehearsal of his own volition, and he's like, what? And they're just like, you know, that video where people take all the sound out of a dance video, and it's just like basketball shoes squeaking. Yeah. That's what it's like. Yeah. And the emperor's like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah. Well, it's your laws prohibit ballet, sir.
Yeah.
We can't have a ballet.
We'll put it back in. I don't know why he hates ballet so much. Is it because ballet is French as well? Is this emperor like Enza? I just fucking can't stand anything French.
Maybe, yeah. I just love how times change.
Do you want fries with that, sir? What?
They better be freedom fries.
Sorry.
I just love how times change, but people don't. There's always some new form of art that the olds are like, oh, ballet. That is going to rot the children's minds.
Yeah.
They can't. Oh, rock and roll. That's going to melt the video games. That's going to melt the children's minds.
What is this twerking? Take it out of the opera.
I make it illegal.
But sir, throwing ass is the linchpin of the theme of this opera.
Wait a minute. Do you mean if they're not throwing ass, they're just wiggling up there? Change the law. Let them throw ass.
Put the ass throwing back in.
The A in Amadeus's ass.
I also love that Salieri is the only one that appreciates the genius of Mozart, right? Because during the opera is finally put on, but the emperor yawns, right? And one yawn means that it's only going to last for 9 days. And so nobody likes this opera, but Salieri is like moved beyond words by it. You think this is literally the best thing that's ever been created.
Yeah, I didn't know music was like that was possible.
But he's the only one that can appreciate it, right? We get a long sequence of kind of the extended failures of Mozart. He puts on 2 more operas.
His father dies. They find out that Mozart's father is dead because he like comes home and he's got a couple friends with him and he's like, oh, Constance, these are my friends, my buddy. And she's like, your dad's dead.
Oh.
And that really wrecks him. And then he creates...
Because he's got like this portrait of his father up in his apartment. Like he's a daddy's boy.
He's a daddy's boy. He's for sure a daddy's boy. And so that in his grief, he creates Don Giovanni. And we get to see the Don Giovanni play in the foreground, but Salieri's watching the whole time, and he's like Salieri, to your point, is like the only person who gets this play because it's empty. The theater's like pretty much empty, but he saw every single performance, and he's like that. You know, the big bad villain is Leopold, his dad, raised from the dead to accuse his son in front of all the world, and he knows like, oh, this is the thing that will drive Mozart mad, and so he starts like, you know, he loves this play and he loves this art, but now he knows a way how he can finally triumph over God. And I'm such a dumb idiot, Kit, where every time I see the poster for Amadeus, it's that figure with its hand stretched out wearing the hat. After I saw this for the first time in high school, I always would look at this poster and be like, I mean, great movie. I don't understand this poster. I don't get it. But now I'm like, oh, the poster is the shadowy figure of his dad. It's that silhouette. That's what it is. And that's why I'm like an idiot, because I don't understand the poster. But yeah. He's going to use the memory of his dad's death to haunt Mozart.
Yes. And there's I think it's one of the Italian composers of the court that he goes to for money and literally begs. And the guy's like, fuck off. Because that's how destitute he's becoming, you know, because he's offered by one of the vaudevillians to write a lewd play, you know, a lewd symphony. I don't think it's a play, but whatever that is, right? A vaudeville show. And he's like, you can have 50% of the house take. But then she's like, we need money now. It's my money.
I want it now.
Honey, you need to call J.G. Wentworth. And so he ends up trying to borrow money from one of the Italian turds that doesn't like him.
Oh, that was the dog guy.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, it's the same. It's the dog guy.
And he's like, fuck off, sir.
He's like, well, where's your daughter? She's married, not here anymore. You can leave, dude.
Well, are you sure? And you want to teach your dog some stuff?
No. They hate music.
Yes. And then there's a scene, this is where he begins to kind of go mad, you know, and it's kind of it's a little bit of surreal interpretation, but it's also Salieri's plot, right? There's some pounding on his door while he's writing that opera in his head. And I love the way that it's shot because it sounds like it's basically diegetic music in the movie because he hears a fully formed opera in his head. And then when it's interrupted, it becomes completely silent when he's distracted. I just love how that's depicted. Like he just hears everything complete and how wonderful that is, you know? Yeah. But also is it a curse? He's unable to kind of focus on normal things. But there's a pounding on the door and he thinks it's the death mask guy because he's been commissioned by this secret guy to write a requiem for a funeral. And every time someone knocks on his door for the rest of the movie, he's like, tell him I'm not here.
Tell him I'm not here.
Because he's wearing, do you notice he's wearing the costume that his dad was wearing at the party?
Yep.
At the orgy.
The happy, sad mask on either side of the head.
Well, I wish we could just go around town like that. You can't do that anymore. No. People think you're weird.
Yeah.
But back then, you
all the time.
Like you can just go get a gallon of milk.
You'd see a guy like that on the street. You'd be like, oh, dude, Frank's having a great time today. Going to a party?
You going to that orgy?
Can I come?
Make sure you pick a penalty. But yeah, he begins to lose his mind, right?
And of course, Salieri is the one who is donning the costume and pretending to be this person, commissioning him to do this requiem.
He's pretending to be Frank.
Yeah, that's how he's preying on his fragile mind.
And this is the descent into madness, you know? And at one point, even the maid, Laurel, goes to Salieri and she says, don't make me go there anymore.
Please, he's scary.
They're crazy. And he's like, but tell me stuff.
Hold on, before we get too scary, let me counter with this. Tell me stuff.
So Salieri as daddy shows up to check on the Requiem Mass for
realsies.
Yeah, Dadlieri. Ooh, that's a good one. But the wife cries with him and he ends up with Mozart because after he leaves, he's just so upset by this that he can't take it anymore. But she calms him down, you know? She's a very dutiful, wonderful wife, falls asleep next, at least let me sit with you while you work, you know? And he sneaks out as soon as she falls asleep and goes to some crazy ass party with the vaudevillian people, snorts blow and, you know, plays with hookers all night. I don't know if those ladies are hookers, but you know, it was inappropriate for a married man to be there. They're
definitely being vaudevillains.
Ooh, are you coming up with all of this on the fly?
No.
You wrote down Dadlieri?
Yeah.
And vaudevillains.
Yeah.
But you came with it on the fly. Then.
Okay, Salieri, I did come up, but not vaudevillains.
Okay. Well, when he comes home, Stanzi's gone. She's packed up her shit, took the kids, left.
Why would you treat Stanzi
Why
so
would you
poorly?
do that?
She's such a good partner.
Yeah, such
she's
a good woman.
Amazing. But her mom,
Do you
the
realize
landlord's
how
still
quick
there.
she was willing to sell her ass to keep the house straight?
So quick.
Literally her first. So quick. You weren't even that poor then.
She's so ride or die.
She was preemptively.
Emphasis on the ride.
Yeah. I mean,
she's awesome. Like Elizabeth Barrage.
yes.
She's lovely. Like you really, you get why they're together. They're like, they got like similar interests. They're fun together, but you can see how if you're with someone like Amadeus, the character in this movie, like that can go south, but she's doing her best. She's trying to hold it together. Yeah. God love her.
He can't be an easy man to be around at all for an extended period of time.
No. Especially with that laugh.
Yeah. But Stanzi's gone. But he hears the opera aria when the mother is yelling at him. It's another one of my favorite scenes in this movie. Yeah, because you can see him like zoning out while she's doing this like high pitched shrill yelling, and you're like, where's this going? And then it cuts to what he can hear. So fucking amazing, right? And we get a hard cut to his opera being performed, which I think this is the vaudeville place, and that's still Salieri came all the way to this obscene venue, secretly to hear Mozart's stuff because it's that fire. And he passes out during the show, and Salieri is the one that comes to him and says, "Hey, pack him up, take him with me," right? And he's like, "You're so good to me. You're such a good friend." And Salieri's been the orchestrator of all of this throughout all of this time, right? So he feels kind of bad about that. And he's the only one. You're the only one of all the fuckers in Vienna who came to this vaudeville show, right? And he says, "You are the greatest composer known to me," which is the truth.
Yeah.
And Mozart is kind of like, "Oh, that's so sweet," right?
But then there's a knocking on the door.
And it's the vaudeville guy yet again. And he's like, tell him I'm not here.
Yeah, he thinks it's the figure that he's so scared of, but really it's just the vaudeville guy like, "Hey, is he all right? Here's his take."
But he's like, "But ask him for money," so it's the perfect ruse, So he gives it to him and he says that, "But you have to finish by tomorrow and he'll give you another 100 ducats,
Ducats.
Oh my goodness. Isn't that what they call them in Grand Theft Auto San Andreas?
Give me them ducats.
I believe so.
Funny that you would know that, Mozart.
And so there's the scene where he is composing Requiem with Salieri. It's fucking incredible. Salieri can't keep up, but I waxed about it earlier. It's one of the most wonderful things I've ever seen in cinema.
Supposedly the way they filmed this, Tom was jumping ahead in the script on purpose to keep tripping up Murray.
Really?
Yeah.
That's clever.
So they can kind of keep going like, "Oh, well, hold on. Where are you at?" So he was purposely,
he could just have it written there. Yeah.
Yeah. He was just bouncing around the script on purpose to keep him tripped up in the moment, which I think is like, I love it when actors and directors do that type of shit to kind of accentuate performance.
Get what they want out of a scene. Yeah. So eventually the next morning, the wife finds Salieri there and she's smarter than Mozart. She's immediately like, "What the fuck are you doing here?"
Aren't you the guy that was a huge prick to me?
Because Mozart, like on the one hand, he's like, "You're so good to me," but like, he's very wealthy and you are struggling hard and he could help you easily at any point.
Yeah.
But that never occurred to you, but it occurs to her, because he's the one that made her get naked and called the servants in, right?
Yep.
And he's like, I was helping him, right? But while he's there, he dies. I was trying to find a better way to say that. There isn't one,
Yeah, because she's trying to kick him out.
She's like, "You must not work on this particular thing ever again, the Requiem," right? Because he told her, like, "It hurts me physically. That's why I haven't finished it for money."
Yeah. Yeah. And he says, like, I won't respect your wishes, ma'am. I'll respect his. And they turn to look to him and he has passed at some point while they were having that conversation.
Yep. The Lacrimosa plays in the next scene during his shitty funeral. And it's a part of the Requiem that is fire, honestly. It's epic. The maid is there weeping because she knows what she has contributed to, the shitty end of his years. Mm-hmm. And again, Salieri is so narcissistic that he says, "God killed Mozart and kept me alive just to torture," right? And then we get that, "I am the champion of mediocrities," which is how I feel.
"I speak for all of our mediocrities in the world. I am the patron saint. I absolve you." Gosh, what a way to end this movie. Like,
it's fucking amazing.
It's like such a downer. And then just the the wild triumphantness that Salieri has, and this like perceived like actually it's not even perceived, like he's just sort of accepted that he's mediocre, and he's
you ever been in like such a low spot that you think it's hilarious?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because he even laughs at and the pastor's like crying, and he's like, how sad is it? Your God killed his chosen vessel so that mediocrity he couldn't share that greatness with any sort of mediocrity. Like, how wild is that? No one could touch an ounce of his greatness. And instead of that, I killed him.
Nothing is funnier than grasping what you perceive to be a true life irony, you know? A very small version of this happened to me, and this is the dumbest story ever, but that's what I'm known for.
Please, I love these.
Like maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks ago, I don't think I told you this. It might have been even the day that I couldn't show up for solo. Not the day, but around that time. I'm in the bathroom. I'm having a pretty decent day, but I'm also extremely stressed, quitting my job. Some other things personal aren't going well, blah, 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 blah. I shared some of that with you the other days, but I'm in my bathroom brushing my teeth. My wife and my daughter come in. It's almost time to give my daughter a bath. So they're waiting for me to finish brushing my teeth. I have a water flosser that I use. What I do is I fill it with Listerine.
Ooh.
And power blast my teeth with Listerine. It's a very effective way to do that. I hate how they're designed, or at least the one that I have. I don't know about you, but the button to turn it on is huge, and it's right where your hand would naturally sit when holding it at all. So I turn to my wife to say something to her and my beautiful daughter, and I press that button, and I power wash Listerine straight into my retina.
Oh no!
Like it hits me dead center in the eyeball. Ooh. So not only is it like pepper spray because it's Listerine, but it's like the force of it is quite painful.
Right.
You know what I mean? Those things are strong. So honestly, it was hilarious. I bet. I start flailing because I'm just full panic. Yes. I'm like knocking the shower curtain down, knocking shit off the walls. I throw the water flosser. My mouth is full of Listerine when it happens. So I just panically, and I spit that on the floor, and I'm blind looking for the bathtub. I could have like broken my neck, so I fall in the bathtub and start turning the water on to wash my eye out. And I'm like, and my wife and my daughter is standing there watching all this. Like, what the fuck? And then while the faucet's pouring over my eyes, after a second, I start laughing like the hardest I've laughed in many, many months, because I can kind of see what this must look like. And but my wife takes the laughter as a cue to more problem. Like, oh no. And I hear her go, okay, daddy's lost his mind, baby. I say all that to say, like, I get it. Like in your final moments of like, just like this sucks so bad. Just being like, this is fucking hilarious at this point. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Because I had such a shitty week, crazy day. And I was just like, let me just brush my teeth, take care of my fam and go to bed then. And then that happened. I was like, okay, this is actually hilarious. Yeah. So I am also the champion of mediocrities.
I'm glad that your war against God's going well.
Not well, Steve. But thank you so much for requiring that we watch and cover Amadeus. I don't know when I would have revisited this movie, and I don't think I appreciated it at 14 anywhere near as much as I should have.
I definitely didn't appreciate this movie as much as I should have when I first saw it in high school as well.
Yeah.
But I always respected the acting and the craft, but like it is a really
there's a lot of mature
wonderful movie
themes going on here. Yeah. Gorgeous movie. Thank you so much. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Next week, again, it's When Harry Met Sally and Attack the Block after Friday's Hidalgo, of course. And then we'll be diving into House of the Dragon and the Boys. Thank you guys for sticking with us for so many years.
Yeah.
But that's all the time we have for right now. We've got to go return some videotapes. My name is Kit.
And I'm Steve.
And this was Streaming Things, streaming Amadeus.
The champion of mediocrities.